Uh, Wonderful talents we've had recently on Filme Shilmy, and I think one of the finer talents I think of the current crop of actors that have really broken through is of course Taaruk Raina, who has is not only just a great actor, but he's also a wonderful musician as well. So thank you, Taaruk, for joining me on filmshilmy.com, and it's wonderful to speak with you regarding Waking of a Nation streaming soon on SonyLIV. So thank you so much for joining me.
Thank you so much for having me. Thank you so much.
Amazing. I think it's a very interesting sort of venture for you because number one, you're playing a character that is set amidst a very dark and bleak chapter of Indian history. But at the same time, you're having to hold your own, and your character itself is going through different dilemmas and complexities. So I think whilst navigating such a vast sort of project and the vast sort of themes in the series, how do you necessarily hold your own, Taruk, and not get too carried away with either of the emotions and stick to the facts like you do as a lawyer in this?
Um, I think that is the hardest part. I think the idea is to be focused not just as an actor, but as a person who's just voicing um things that need to be said. Rather than making it dramatic or making it. I mean, of course, it is cinema, it is dramatic. Um, but at the same time, the focus is to get the message across. And when there is so much to say, you need to focus on the job. And as a even I mean, as I was playing a lawyer, um you know a first and foremost, even if it comes from an emotional place, uh the idea of Kanti Lal Sani, my character, is to beat them at their own game. um we culturally are emotional, we are dramatic, and what we're facing is a lot more black and white, and a lot more organized, and a lot more stoic, and a lot more straight, and like all of that. And to beat them at their own game in with their own method is how what we try to do.
Hmm.
So I mean, that's what I set out to do, and that's what I was trying to do, both as a character and an actor, and just as a person, in while shooting the series.
Hmm. And honestly, I was very surprised when I found out that Ram Madhvani was spearheading this because I never would have thought of him to do something in this space, even though I know he did Nirja.
Mm.
But I think the way his approach is, and I remember even when I saw Arya, is
Mm.
it's very brooding. He always has this a very slow burning way of establishing the sort of powers at play and the sort of conversations that are taking place between those different powerhouses within that narrative. I think given the fact that, like I mentioned, it is quite a slow burner in that sense, and it is very brooding, especially. How does that tempo and that grammar of a director then influence the way you also adapt yourself as an actor?
I mean, honestly, it is the tempo of the story that's being told.
Yeah.
It's the I think the point of the tempo is to explain the gravity of the situation. Uh, because it is not something to be taken lightly. It's not something that can be finished quickly.
Hmm.
It requires that patience, and it deserves it, honestly. Something like this, what happened in the Jallianwala Bagh in the April of 1919 deserves this kind of time. It is that is what we're actually trying to say, that about the massacre, but you know why it happened, about the conspiracy. Um, so I think that tempo is correct because it deserves it.
Hmm. Now, it's interesting because you mentioned the fact that it deserves that time of day, and agreed. We literally had Sardar Udham based on this topic. In fact, I think even Kesari 2, Dharma Productions' film is also coming, which is also based around this topic. Um, but I would love to know for you, what was some of the research that you've done about this case that might have taken you aback? Or maybe caught you off guard, or maybe something that you didn't actually realize so truthfully about this massacre.
I actually didn't know about the conspiracy existing. I didn't know personally. We all read about the massacre, and we even studied it in school, and we all know
Yeah.
about it. It was one of the most horrific days of Indian history. We know about that. I mean, we know the details of it. It's been shown to us. It's been read to us. It's a part of our history, a very prominent part of our history, and a dark, dark part of our history. But I honestly wasn't aware of the conspiracy. I wasn't aware of the Hunter Commission. So for me, it was a massive eye opener from the get go. I got to know this story as I was asked to audition for the part. So from the word go, it was all a discovery for me. And then all the research I did was, I mean, it's all in the public domain. It's not we're not saying that this is a true story. My character is fictitious. It's inspired by true events. That's what it is. But if you do Google it, there is a person named Hansraj who is an informer. You will find him. There is a Hunter Commission. All this stuff is there. It's
Mm.
out for the public to see. So yes, the research involved all of those things. I mean, uh, but at the same time, to stay true to what the character was, I I always kind of consciously wanted to know only how much he would have known.
Mm.
Because that would be the most honest portrayal of him. Like if he knew everything that was going to happen, then there would be no anticipation of it. There would be no curiosity in his own mind.
Right.
So to protect myself from that kind of assumption, I,
Mm.
I I kind of stayed away from getting extensively into what happened. Of course, you need to. I mean, it is research based. You can't go in there unaware.
Yeah, of
Um,
course.
but as an actor purely, it helps when you don't know what's about to happen next because you get the most organic product out there.
Mm. Mm-hmm. No, definitely. And I think it's interesting, isn't it? Because I've always said this about Ram, and when I interviewed Ram actually a long time ago, I did say this to him that I love the way he always chooses actors who are very unassuming. Like the way he chose Sushmita and Arya, the way he got Sonam to do Nirja. I love the sort of casting decisions as well, and I think it's great. I think an actor like you definitely can benefit from that. But look, I'm very fascinated a lot about your journey as well because your career it spans across acting and music. So do you kind of feel more vulnerable as a musician because you're expressing something personal, or do you feel like acting kind of pushes you into a bit more of a deeper emotional spaces, like perhaps how this series has?
See, I think they're both very, very personal forms of expression. I think, see, where when you make music, when you write songs, and when you write them purely for yourself or from yourself, it is very exposing, in nature. Like you kind of let out your feelings. In fact, I think songwriting is kind of only based on courage. It's about how much you can say, how brave you are to honestly say what you want to say. Um, so yes, that is a very vulnerable form of expression. But the thing is, you can hide behind a song. When you act, you're there, and when you portray any character with a certain amount of honesty, you will find yourself in that character. That is what everyone tries to do. You will find parts of yourself. Or it works both ways. Either you find parts of yourself, or you find parts of the character in yourself. Uh, so it does work that way. And then when you truly feel what the character feels, and because it's a visual medium, you see it. Uh, that's then there's no escape. Then
Hmm.
you're bearing it all. If you're crying, you're really crying. If so, and that is both the mediums are very, very, very expressive in their own way, and I actually try to converge them as much as possible. Um, I try to look at performing arts as one. Um, we come from this school where a singer does this and an actor does this and a dancer does this. It's not like that in the West. You'll be surprised how many actors are from musical theater from the get-go.
True, true.
And I come from theater and musical theater. So for us, when we act and we dance and we sing and we do it all and we do stunts at the same time, it is part of one performance.
Mm,
So I don't see it as two different things, and I don't think I want to.
yeah. Now, I'm glad you mentioned about the emotional part because I think this will be a nice little follow-up because I mentioned earlier about you knowing about the history and all of that. And now that you mentioned emotions, was there a moment during the filming of the series where the weight of history really truly hit you? And was there a moment that stayed with you long after the camera stopped rolling?
Yes, actually, there is one moment. I have you seen the series? Have you seen?
I've only seen a few episodes, but please feel free to mention about it though. It would be nice
Because
to.
I don't know when this. I don't want to give any spoilers.
Yeah.
But so there is an actor named Bhavsheel, who is playing Hari Singh Olak, and over the course of shooting this, outside of shooting this, also he's become a friend. Like just like Sahil and Nikita have become my friends, he's become a friend. And there is a scene that I shoot where I'm reading out names on a list, and I read out his name. And that day, when I read out his name and I couldn't see him, and because it's like the takes go on for 55, 60 minutes. It's one take. It's not like it's not some one line you say and you cut. And that's how Ram sir shoots.
Mm,
Uh, um, so you kind of forget that you are acting. You kind of forget that this is a performance. You start living the part, because beyond 5, 6 minutes, you forget about cameras and you are basically in that.
mm.
And I remember I read his name and I didn't see him around. And I think I just broke for a second. Like,
Oh.
yeah, because it's not, of course, that I didn't know Hari Singh Olak, but I knew Bhavsheel. And
Mm,
I couldn't see him. And I sort of, for a second, felt like I couldn't see my friend. My friend had gone.
mm.
Uh,
Yeah.
and that second kind of made me imagine what every single person that has lost their people, their family, their fathers, their mothers, their children, young children, their friends would have even felt. And that was nothing. That was just a hypothetical. But if that can do that much, the real thing must be uh, like I can't even express it. You know.
Yes. No, no, no. I understand what you're saying. And the thing is, so Taruk, you're from your surname, I'm guessing you're a Kashmiri Pandit, right?
Yes.
Now, obviously, with Kashmiri Pandits, because they've also suffered a genocide, right? Essentially, they've witnessed persecution firsthand. Do you think that also adds a certain layer to you because you've obviously heard about it, right? I'm sure you've understood, like you've seen it probably from close quarters, I'm sure.
Yes. Yes, absolutely. I mean, my family's been through it. We've seen it all our lives. And I've heard endlessly about it. And I try not to kind of mix the two because they are different, but it is the same kind of thing. Um, and for something like that to happen to anyone is is just it's
It's
it's so
evil.
wrong.
It's horrible. I mean,
It-
it's an act
or-
against humanity, right?
yes, act against humanity, and this is what we talk about in our series. We talk about humanity. We talk about insaniyat,
Hmm.
and we talk about the fact that these people were just some names on a list for the British, nothing else, like nothing.
Hmm.
And you know that it's not that they don't feel it. We had 12 actors down from London, and
Hmm.
they didn't know anything about this because they don't teach it. You know, Colonialism in India and the reign over our land is a paragraph or two in their whole textbook. Imagine that. They
Oh
summed up
yeah.
every, yeah.
I'm from London and I can tell you, we literally हमें घंटा मालूम था. Like honestly, see, luckily as an Indian, obviously I knew like what the British did and how brutal they were and evil they were, of course. But when it comes to actual dynamics, the only thing that we saw was Lagan as a sort
Mm.
of, I mean, which wasn't a bad sort of insight into the brutalities, but there was so much more though. Like obviously, like this chapter that the series conveys. But no, I think this whole moment that you had with Bhavshi, Taruk. Would you say that's been like the most defining moment of your career so far, in which you as an artist feel like you were heard and seen as well?
I don't know about if I mean, we'll only know on the 7th of March if I've heard and seen.
Oh,
But but I remember the way my heart sank for a second. I mean, he was right outside.
yeah.
After half an hour, he was right outside. But the way my heart sank when I kind of, you forget you're in a zone, you forget that you're not, you forget reality. That is the idea. That is the ideal situation for an actor.
Hmm.
Um, but I remember the way my heart sank. I remember how my breath just got heavier. And it's not something I did. That's the shocking part of it. Like, it's not I'm not trying to take credit of it as, oh, I acted like this. It happened to me.
Sure.
So I mean I hope it looks as intense as I felt in the show.
Hmm.
Um, but I haven't seen a thing, so I don't really know as yet. But even I will get to see it on the 7th of March.
No, no, no. I
Uh,
think you definitely have done a really good job. It's not easy to hold your own, I think, especially because it's such a heavy subject. And I think के नाजुक कंधों पर, संभालना है बहुत मुश्किल है. It's not easy at all. But I think you've done a good job from what I've seen anyway so far. Definitely. But look, I think it's interesting because you started off, I think, what, with like kind of light-hearted roles in Mismatch. In fact, that was my first sort of, I think, like all of us, was our sort of in like.
Technically, this when the start of Mismatch, my role isn't lighthearted at all.
Yeah, which is interesting though, right? Because actually, technically, you've had like work before Mismatched happened,
Yeah,
technically, right?
yeah.
But obviously, because Mismatch was so popular and obviously it got you in the limelight and all of that. But now, obviously, you're delving into obviously more socio-political, kind of historical, really heavy sort of content. I mean, mind you, this is just the one out, I'm sure, out of the many that you have. Do you also feel responsibility as an artist though? Like, where it's almost beyond the entertainment quotient and it's kind of delving into the whole cultural discourse and historical discourse as well.
See, I don't think that, artists hold that responsibility. I don't think it is their responsibility. To feel it is a different thing. To feel it and to have it are two different things. I really want to say, like I don't think we have it, but we can feel it. Uh, you know, I mean, we heard in Spider-Man that with great power comes great responsibility.
Hmm.
Um, but but at the same time, there is a it's a fine line. You have to think about what you do, of course, as just a human. It's not about the right or wrong. It's not about you set out to be some sort of activist. It's not that.
Of course. Yeah.
It's yeah, I think people kind of make it about a lot of things, but I think it's just that you want to do good things. You want to do things that entertain people, make people happy, make people feel things. First and foremost, make people feel. And I think, whether that's however you do it, if you make people feel the right things, and if you give them that catharsis, I think you'll be fine.
Hmm. No, very nice answer. No, I think even I think Priyanka Chopra said this once in an interview that she did as well. That at the end of the day, you're not activists, of course not. But art is such a powerful medium, Taruk. You know,
Yeah, that's
हमने देखा है. We've seen the impact of art. Like, I mean, there was a show on ITV here in the UK which
hmm
talked about a very Barso Purani scandal which affected postmen. Okay. And because of that, actually, conversations in parliaments and an actual follow up on this case, it evoked. So to kind of dismiss the idea that art doesn't have an impact is certainly not true. So I think it would be nice to actually then know, given the impact of art, what impact do you hope that this series will have actually? Not just obviously in terms of us making us realize an untold chapter of history, but what else, especially in our current day situation, do you hope this might evoke?
it's first of all, it's an ode to the people who lost their lives, first
Of
and
course,
foremost.
100%. Yeah.
The other thing is that, all of us at some point have felt as a second-rate citizen in our own land, or I mean, you're from London, you know.
Hmm.
I'm sure there must be some day. I'm not saying every day. I mean, I love the place. It's great. But there must be some point in your life where you must have felt that, yo, Do I belong here? Um,
Yeah.
like, I mean, I'm saying in an ideal situation, maybe not, but it's more common than not, right?
Hmm. Of course.
Um,
Yeah.
and I think for everyone who's ever felt like a second-rate citizen in their own land, or ever felt a sense of humiliation, a sense of inferiority, and they've been made to feel like that. It's not like they've felt it themselves. And that is what they made us feel like in our own land.
Correct.
So it is that fight that we're fighting with this series.
Yeah. I think us as NRIs, honestly, quite frankly, I think as
Yeah,
a
I mean, like you spoke about, I mean, I mean, you're from the UK. I mean, you're Indian, but you're from the UK. But and you spoke about, let's say, that show with the postman. But there's also like there's so many forms of content. Like there's so many forms of entertainment, as we call it. You know,
mm,
you can watch that, and then you can watch an episode of A League of Their Own, right?
yeah, of
Like,
course. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
you know,
Exactly.
but this is, I mean, it is personal to us in a way that everyone has kind of felt this.
Hmm.
मतलब वो कहते हैं ना, जो जलील सब हुए हैं कभी ना कभी,
जी बिल्कुल.
you know and जब नहीं होना चाहिए, I mean, Ram sir always tells me, who are these people to tell us to eat with a fork and knife?
Yeah, oh my God, oh my God, Taruk, this is literally so crazy you're saying this, okay? Genuinely, like, हम कल restaurant में गए थे and I was having like South Indian food. Sorry, I'm kind of भटको, but this is
Yeah.
crazy how you're mentioning this. But literally, like, सब like हाथ से खा रहे थे and my dad was like, नहीं, छोड़ो ना, spoon से नहीं खाना है, हाथ से खाना है. I was like, oh my God. So the fact that you're saying this is actually very interesting, but please go on because it's just had
That's
a
what I'm saying.
reality
What
moment.
made it wrong and what made it right,
Yeah,
right? I
exactly.
mean, we are victims of colonization, and we will always be. We are, it's done. And there's a really interesting statistic that we show in the series as well, that every 7 days somebody somewhere, some country celebrates independence from the British. Every 7 days. It's a weekly thing.
True. Yes.
It's a weekly thing. Can you imagine?
It's interesting because I think for us British Indians as well, because for Gore log we are very Indian and for Indians we're very British. So
Yeah.
it's like I feel sorry for people like us actually because we're kind of in a quandary. I mean देखो
Yeah.
अपना roots तो अपना roots ही होता है. So it's eventually we're always gonna be Indian, no doubt, right? But it kind of just makes you it's a very interesting sort of situation and a dichotomy to be in,
Yeah.
because you're kind of like in a way in the land of the world that kind of oppressed your motherland, but at the same time you're rooted to your motherland. It's like where does in fact it's pretty much like how your character sort of felt, isn't it, initially? Because he was someone who really
Worshipped the British.
worshipped the
Yeah.
British. Exactly.
He
Exactly.
worshipped the British, and he goes from wearing a suit to wearing a dhoti. That's his transition.
Yeah, 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 yeah.
Ramsar told you, he one day told me this, and actually that kind of carried me through the whole shoot. That's what I kept telling myself.
Hmm,
And he said that the price of maturity is the loss of innocence. And and that is the arc I followed throughout.
hmm.
That is why there is that tempo. How quickly do you lose your innocence?
But again, to play that though, I mean, because I understand loss of innocence from a very close lens, Taruk. So I understand exactly how it feels, right? But when you're playing that strand of loss of innocence, right? I mean, firstly, it has to come from a very deep pain as well within you as an actor. Not, I mean, I always feel that, you've had to must have gone through some sort of hardship in your life to be an actor. Because if you're having to take workshops for crying and for being angry, then this must be something quite not right. Because, you have to delve on certain pain in your life, to bring that
I
out.
don't. It's no, no. The workshops are not for crying and being angry. Workshops are for rehearsal.
But I'm sure there must be people who might try to evoke these emotions through those workshops. But I mean, what reference
I
point did you
I
go
mean,
on?
you don't need people to try and evoke them. Just read. Just read what's written. How can you not cry? How can you not be angry?
Yeah.
Like, it's see, it's all about, letting it out. Like I grew up as a very conditioned, guy. Like men, we're not allowed to feel, we're not allowed to cry. Me being an actor has changed all of that for me. I'm
Okay.
not afraid to say what I'm saying today because I've been acting for the last 10, 11 years. It wasn't always like that. I've learned how to feel externally. I never knew it was a thing. Even today, I'm not saying I've mastered it. I'm not saying that I'm not guarded. I am guarded. And whether that's the male conditioning where we grew up with,
Mm,
whether that's societal norms that we grew up with, that this is how men are and this is how we have to be. Uh, I I mean, that doesn't mean you can't break it. It might take time, but you can. To a certain extent, you are allowed to feel things.
mm,
I always grew up as being told that you got to be the man, you got to be there for people, and I do believe it to a certain extent, and I do practice that as well. That is a very
of course.
integral part of my being. That I'm okay, fine. If something goes wrong, you should be able to handle it. You can't break. You
Mm,
can't be like, you know, you have to be there for your family. You have to be there for your people. That is what I grew up learning.
mm,
And that is a very large part of my being. And I want to do it to my fullest. But at the same time, there is a part of me that has become more vulnerable and more open and more okay with being vulnerable. And
mm.
and it's impossible to be an actor or a songwriter or anything. How can you express any feelings if you can't even open your mouth? So, like,
Yeah, no, definitely. But I think it would be nice to know actually, like, I mean, no, now that you've been part of such a robust series in terms of what it really exposes and really brings to public attention. Um, what kind of roles do you hope will kind of define the next phase of your career? I mean, I mean, I'm sure there must be narratives that you're eager to explore, but you haven't had the chance yet. I mean, also you've got a film, I think, called Songs of Paradise coming up as well.
yeah, yes.
So if you could also answer that question and also talk a bit about that, that'd be great.
So, I mean, see, in terms of the future and what plans I have, I don't have any plans. I've had way too many plans in my head that haven't worked out, and I've stopped planning.
Yeah, but
Uh,
bucket list to hoga na as an actor, like you want to explore
yeah,
this shade
मैं
and
ही बकेट हूँ।
Hmm.
मैं ही बकेट हूँ, मुझ पे पानी डालो, कोई बात नहीं। कोई कोई प्रॉब्लम नहीं है, मुझे नहीं चाहिए कोई बकेट लिस्ट, मेरा कोई टू डू लिस्ट नहीं है, मेरे कोई वो नहीं है। आई वांट टू डू गुड थिंग्स, एंड when and how they come is not under my control. All I can do is do the best job I can do and try my hardest. And I try every day. It's not like I don't have the luxury of picking and choosing all the time. I think maybe I reach there someday. I hope so. I'm trying. I've been trying the same thing for a long time, and I will keep trying. I'm not tired at all. I'm good. I have no complaints. Because I'm fortunate enough that I get to play these different parts. I mean, from Mismatch to The Waking of a Nation, it's like it's poles apart. I
Yes.
get to do that's a big thing in itself. I'm happy with that. So, in the future, something good will come along, hopefully.
Hmm.
And if it takes time, then good things take time.
They do, they do. Yeah. And Songs of Paradise, if you could enlighten us on a bit about that.
Songs of Paradise is a film. Am I allowed to talk about it? Is it announced?
Well, it's on Wikipedia, so I don't know.
Wikipedia? Well,
Yeah,
it's directed by a dear friend of mine named Danish Renzu.
yeah, I know
Uh,
Danish, yes.
it's a story based in Kashmir. I always, always, always wanted to do something in Kashmir. I don't know when it's coming out. I don't know how much I'm allowed to say. But yeah, I'm looking forward to that one as well. If it's on Wikipedia, that is.
Yes, no, it's definitely on Wikipedia. That's how I got to know about it, and also because I know Danish as well. And I also know Sabah Azad is in the film. So there we go. That's enough information
Okay.
to reassure you. No, but I
I
think
mean, I don't want to be like, oh, yo, I just said all this stuff.
It's all right. No, 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 not at all. But no, I think it's really nice. And I really, honestly, I know you said you don't have a bucket list, but Taruk, I really hope we can see more Kashmiri Pandit stories coming out. Yeah. Like I would love to see that voice being heard also. Not just to do necessarily with what happened in the 90s, because that's already people have known about, right? I mean, of course, that is also welcome because that's also a voice of pain that needs to be acknowledged fully. But
Yeah,
also, I think just the culture, the weddings, I was telling Imtiaz Ali the other day that Rockstar was the first time in Hindi cinema history where we saw a Kashmiri Pandit wedding.
yeah,
The culture के बारे में, उनके रहन सहन के बारे में बहुत कुछ जानना है हमें. So
yeah,
it's a voice that is again like Waking of a Nation. It's very unsung and very not in the public domain.
yeah.
So I really hope we get to see such stories, and I hope we get to be a part of that genuinely.
No, I hope so too. I hope so too. I hope so too. I think, I mean, there are a lot of stories that have to be told, and there are a lot of stories that are still untold. And I think, we can look forward to all of them.
Yeah, no, 100%, definitely. But I mean, Taruk, before we go, do you think you could sing something for us just to give a bit of a taster of the beautiful musicality that you have?
There's very interesting music in The Waking of a Nation. Um, all the songs are based on sayings by Kabir. Um,
Oh
yeah.
wow.
And
I'm a big Kabir. I love, like, I've literally grown up singing his dohas. Oh my God, this is incredible. Oh my God, I love this.
the melodies are composed by Samiruddin. He's done a fabulous job. It's hauntingly beautiful.
Yeah.
And I've got the chance to sing all of it.
Oh, amazing.
So I've sung all of it. And so this is a song called Chala Chali.
Okay.
Uh, दो दिन का है जुगमा मेला दो दिन का है जुगमा मेला सब चला चली का खेला ओ सब चला चली का खेला सब चला चली का खेला कोई चला गया कोई जावे कोई चला गया कोई जावे कोई गठड़ी बांध सिधावे कोई खड़ा तैयार अकेला सब चला चली का खेला सब चला चली का खेला सब चला चली का खेला
Wow, extraordinary. And trusting Ram to have a very cultural and spiritual touch to his narratives as he always does in every of his projects. But that was incredible, Taruk. Thank you so much for doing
Sorry
that.
if it was a little raspy. My voice is really tired.
It was beautiful.
But
It
like,
was incredible. If this was how your raspy voices, I would honestly, I'd love to hear you in your full form. Like seriously, it was incredible. But look, Taruk, thank you so much for joining me on Filme Shilmy. It's been such a pleasure to have you. Actually, you've definitely been
likewise, it's
a
been a
talent.
pleasure to do this with you. Thank you.
You've always been a talent that's been on my mind, and I'm really grateful to SonyLIV that because of this wonderful series that we've been able to sort of chat and get to know more about your very artistic journey and a very beautiful story that needed to be told. So, thank you and congratulations on it.
Thank you so much, man. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. I
Thank you
hope
so
you
much.
watch it. 7th of March, Sony Live.
So 7th of March on SonyLIV. Absolutely.
Yes.
Thank you.
Yes. See you.